So we're here early January 2021 at Bayshore Park, just off of the Highway 57 up on the way to Door County. We are still in Brown County, so this is Brown County Bayshore Park. It is a pretty well-known landmark locally in that just to the north of this parking lot that I'm in is a pretty popular campground and playground area, and there's a nice hiking path as well that kind of winds through the woods and takes you to a popular place known as Frosty Tip Ice Cream up in Dykesville. Wintertime, there's really not much evidence that anyone else is here today. Even the road down to the boat launch, we will go around the roadblock. It's not open to vehicle traffic in the wintertime, which is great because I've got Sunny with me, and we'll hike down there and hike through some of the trails that actually probably a lot of the people that come here to use the boat launch or the park or otherwise, they may not know that there are some pretty neat trails on the south end of this park, and that's primarily where we're going to go today. But before we get down there, I first want to mention this flat area that I'm looking at between the parking lot and the Bay of Green Bay. This flat area, this field, was back in the old days. I guess I don't have dates specifically, but I think 1930s, 40s. This was a Packer training camp. Curly Lambeau, who was the coach back in those days, possibly still played a little bit too. He was a player coach. But there was a lodge right about where I'm pointing the camera right now, and this flat area was used for the Packers practice. Now, if you live in Green Bay, you know that everything around here in the news, local news and so forth, is Packers, Packers, Packers. And I won't be using these videos to talk too much about the Packers because plenty of other places you can find information on that. But I will just mention a few things I think is interesting about this site and the Packers. One is that this was sort of a new thing for Curly to take the team off to a sort of training camp facility that was, a little more remote, and a lot of other NFL teams, it was sort of a new thing at that time. The lodge, I've seen pictures of it, that the lodge and the buildings looked really cool. It looked like a really nice place. When you get over a little further, you'll see it's got a fantastic view of Green Bay, of the Bayshore. But from what I've also read in accounts, in stories, the players absolutely hated practicing here. And probably wasn't because the views were bad or the location was bad, but the reason the players hated practicing on these flat fields right here is that the soil here is not very thick at all, an inch or two or so. And then you're on solid bedrock. So every little play, every time a football player hits the ground, which is often, there is not much cushion. You're hitting bedrock practically. So the players hated it. Curly Lambeau eventually pulled practice away from this location, and I'm not sure if that's maybe when they started practicing at St. Norbert College instead. And then mysteriously, or maybe not so mysteriously, the lodge burned down one night. Some people think it's an accident, some people don't. There's some more information I might try to point you to online about that. But that's enough about the Packers. I guess just wanted to mention that history. Sonny and I are anxious to walk in this direction towards the bay and walk down the road to the boat launch and to the hiking trails that I mentioned before. Now, this roadway coming up was cut, as I understand it. One day, I think the guy who owned this property, who I believe was Cecil Depeau, if I'm pronouncing that last name correctly, one day Cecil decided to start cutting road down through this bedrock cliff face that you'll see here. This was, put in by humans, by Cecil, actually, specifically. Apparently Cecil had the equipment to start making his way down through this bedrock and creating this really very nice, quite spectacular roadway down to the Bayshore. Heavily used again in the summertime. People come down here to fish. There's a little bit of a beach down here. And I probably wouldn't let Sunny off leash just to run around like this during the summer when the boat launch is in use, because the traffic here gets a little bit busy. But it's nice and quiet here now in the wintertime. Nice mix of deciduous and cedar trees here. You start to see the Bayshore, the water down below, which right now is frozen. Right about here, there's a thin layer that's probably underneath the snow, but it's called the Nita Formation, and it's sort of unique. Geologists kind of get into it because it's an iron-rich layer of oolitic sort of stone. It's very unique. It's also a layer that's found further to the south of here too, sort of in the some of the communities there was actually an iron mine, sort of near Lake Winnebago, not far south of here, where that stone was mined for its iron content. And today, those mines have become large bat caves, as I understand. That sounds pretty cool, bat caves. And possibly, if I can get a chance to get down there someday, they do a video of that as well. But I think for now, you get the idea of what this road looks like in the winter. On our way back up the hill, that chunk right there, a little bit more freezing and thawing action, and that it's going to turn into a pile of rock on the ground. Let's hope there aren't any cars or people down here, or dogs, when that happens. So I was talking about the thin layer of soil that the Packers players of old had to play on, and that's pretty much it. For scale, well, I don't have anything to give you a real good scale, but that's only a few inches of soil at best, which doesn't make a very good cushion, I guess, for a football player. So we're at the top of the hill that comes up from the boat launch. Again, sort of on the south side of the park by the ball diamond. And the trails that Sunny and I have visited in years past are this way. Sunny, come in. Again, I don't know that these trails are very well used, just because they're tucked out of sight. And quite honestly, I don't even know if I'm going in the right direction. I think we'll hit a pretty good valley or gorge. If I recall, there's actually some steps that you take down into that. You can tell by the footprints. Yeah, there have been some other people here. The snow that we have here is almost 2 weeks old, a week and a half old. So yeah, in the last week and a half, there have been people here, obviously, but not like the snow is completely trampled down. But a handful of other people have been here recently, along with some animals. I think we're going in the right direction. Yep, there's the stairs. So it is a metal staircase with a railing. So even if, you know, if you don't walk so well anymore, it's safe and fairly easy descent down into this, what I think is probably the coolest part of the park here. So let's use the steps. See how the dog does on these steps. She's been on these before, but it's been a few years. She's doing fine. So right down there is some more of that bedrock outcropping, and the trail goes basically along the edge of that. Sunny's blazing ahead. Hey, I don't know why you're going up there, Sunny. That doesn't look like you're gonna need help getting down? Because I think that's a pretty good cliff face on the other side there, Missy. Again, I think winter time is probably one of the coolest times to be back in here. This is the cliff face that Sunny just was looking down when she jumped up on that rock face up there. Glad she didn't slip. I guess I sort of forgot that it was even that steep. That would have been quite the tumble for a 10-year-old dog. Sonny, you gotta be a little more careful than that. Your paws aren't all that grippy these days anymore, you know. A few more steps with a railing. So again, pretty easy walk, but still quite nice. Sort of. There's a trail we could continue walking on up that way, but I think we're gonna take a left here and continue on down towards the bay, because if I recall, there's a secret, well, not secret, but there's a couple of neat features down here. Okay, right here is an area that's been obviously either hollowed out or perhaps it was natural, but then stone blocks were placed by humans up against the cliff face. So what is this? Heard a couple different thoughts on this. One is that this is an old lime kiln, that fires were built in here, and you know, not sure exactly how lime kilns work, but the heat is used to convert or to transform these certain rocks into lime that then can be used for other purposes. So lime kiln is one possibility. Someone told me once upon a time that there was because we're still quite high up on the side of the cliff here, that there was evidence of a track where materials could be slid down the hill and perhaps into boats that were waiting on the bay. I'm not sure about that. It's possible. The other theory that I've had is in this area, especially I think with the Belgian settlers, that grottos were quite popular, and grottos are, if I'm pronouncing that right, sort of places where where people worshipped and put statues of Jesus or crosses and use it as a place of worship. And I could see that this would be a pretty nice place for a place of nice quiet solitude and worship as well. So those are the two ideas. I'm not sure which one I favor right now, but Again, nice easy little walk. You've got railings and so forth to take you right down here so you don't slip, and it would be quite a tumble. When we get to the mapping later on, I'll measure how far it is from the top of there down to the Bayshore. I'm guessing a couple 100 feet or more, but we'll take a look at that later. So we're hiking up that other trail that I pointed out earlier. We've got some cedar trees in here. Oh, there's another staircase right here. I did not remember that. Handrails and all. Come on, Tony. What do you smell, Sonny? And we're back up to the top of the escarpment here. All right, so the Bayshore Park walk or hike took place, you guessed it, along the Bayshore of Green Bay. So up here in northeastern Brown County, here is Bayshore Park. I'm going to declutter this map just a little bit. We parked right about here. The campground is over here. But what we did today is walked. Here was the Packer training facility back in the 30s, 40s. We walked down this roadway and then came back up and then hiked along this cliff face here where we saw we spent most of the time in the video on the sort of south, actually west end of the park. I said south, I'm sorry. So west end of the park. So I also wanted to point out a few things. One is what the park looked like. This was known as Rockwood Lodge, and I did a little bit more research on it. It was actually built by the Norbertines, the Catholics, as sort of a retreat, I guess. So Rockwood Lodge was there. You'll notice the roadway was not, except for the part on the flat side, but the roadway did not cut down through that cliff face at that time. And the Packers started using it as a training facility in I believe the 1940s, and I have this 1960 aerial photo. The Packers were gone by then. The lodge had actually burned down by then, but there was still you can see some other roadways, but what still is not there yet is the road down to the bay. Here you can see by 1978 that it looks like they were starting to develop this into a park. By that time, you've got the roadway down here. They used the material to create this flat parking space and to create this sort of sheltered boat launch area. And you can research, if you put in Rockwood Lodge into your Google search, or Rockwood Lodge Packers, something like that. You can find out a lot more history on that for yourself. Oh, and one other thing I think I said I would tell you is how high these cliffs are from the top of the escarpment down to the Bayshore. And one easy way to find that out is on this mapping. There are contours on here. You can turn on the contour lines. So you go from 580 feet roughly, which is the elevation of the Bayshore, the water on the bay, up to about 693. So not quite as high as I thought the cliff was in the video, but still pretty decent topography there.